Hello there everyone, I'm Christina and today it's time to open up my second ever Scrawlerbox. So last month we got paint. I'm curious to see what's going to be in this month. Right. Ooh, it seems like a bunch of pens of some sort maybe. So it's an interesting colorway here. We got greens and it's an interesting style. This is the print. So this is definitely quite a different style than I've seen before. And I'm not going to look too much into this like last time because that tells me what's here. I want to kind of be surprised. We get a drawing pad, which is lovely. What is it? 12 sheets. That's pretty good, that. Oh, it's loose. Oh well, makes it easier to look at. That's actually pretty thick, that. So the question is, what kind of supplies we're getting to go with that? I do like the colorways though, first of all. Kind of nice greens, which is perfect. We are kind of going into summer soon, aren't we? Supposedly. Let's break into the tissue. And we get a sticker, which matches by the looks of it. The artwork, it's a part of the artwork there. The eyes and the face. So, first of all, the sweet that we get, it's a refresher sour apple. I do actually like this, so that is pretty perfect. I love sour things in general, so I'll probably have that later on. But then let's have a look at the rest here. So, like I said, seems like a bunch of different kind of liners. And first of all, a pencil. Basic pencil, a Derwent graphic, so a 2B. So just a basic pencil. You can never really have enough of that, especially recently because we moved a little while back, and since then my pencils have kind of just disappeared, so I'm not complaining about that. Let's start with this. So everything's the wrong way around. Let me just get a little bit of paper here ready to do a bit of swatching. No really need to swatch that pencil. So it just kind of seems like a basic pen, black. It actually felt pretty good to write with or draw with, whatever you want to call it. Then here we have, actually it doesn't say anything about size in this, does it? Not on it, I think. Oh yeah, it does, 0.7. Okay. Then we have a fine liner here, water and fade proof pigment ink. So that's a 1mm by the looks of it. So that's thicker than, yep, quite a bit thicker. Actually, that's thicker than I expected to change because this is a 0.7 and then to a 1mm. Doesn't really, it's not that big of a difference in the number, but it actually looks quite different. Again, that feels quite nice to use. I'm liking these two pens. Then we have, ooh, it says brush there, I noticed. And it's in light grey. Then the last ones are these pens here. So I've seen these before. I've never, actually that's not true. Pit Artist pens from Faber-Castell. I think I have a pack of these, but they're in black. They're kind of more for the fine liner part. Where there's different sizes as well, and I think that's a brush pen, but I've never used it. So these are colours. I've never used the Pit Artist pens in colours, and by the looks of it, they're all brush as well, brush pen. So again, that is interesting. All right, let's have a look at the colours. Woo, that's a long one. So that's the blue one. Then we have, what is this called? Scarlet Red. And that was called Sky Blue. And they have these little stars, which usually is to do with light fastness. It says maximum light fastness. I can't say that word. High light fastness. Acid-free, waterproof as well. India ink. That has 2 stars, so hence why high light fastness. Blah. And this one is maximum, so it's 3 stars. I actually quite like the feel of kind of that line variation and getting it really fine just at the tip. That's quite a nice different kind of red, and they go pretty well together because they're actually almost a little bit pastel like. And finally we got the green, and what's this? This has got 3, so again that should be maximum light fastness. And yeah, that goes pretty well as well, so kind of the tones of the colours go pretty well together. And I'm kind of getting a bit summer vibes from this as well, which I already did from the colorway for the materials. So since I've got this on here anyway, and I think this one claimed to be waterproof as well. I think these ones said waterproof. Waterproof, yep. And then this one as well. So I've got a little bit of water and a bit of a brush here from last month's box actually. So let's have a little look. Now obviously this is just regular printer paper, but if they're waterproof then surely the paper shouldn't really make a difference. So let's start with the colours here. So first impressions, yep. Obviously they've just dried for like a minute or so now. The blue, nothing is happening. The red, nothing is happening. And the green, nothing is happening. So that is true. And ooh, it's getting a little bit, it's kind of ripping the paper a bit. That's not the pen's fault, that's just because it's just printer paper. But I feel like I'm getting a little bit of grayness spreading in the water. Yeah, I wouldn't call that waterproof. Maybe it needs a bit longer to dry, but... And the grey then, that was the same brand. So, let's see. That one seems to be reacting pretty well. I'm not really seeing anything come off of that one. So maybe the black just needs a bit longer to dry. And while we're at it though, let's just try that other pen that didn't claim to be waterproof. So it's definitely not waterproof, there's a little bit coming off, but so far it's not really worse than the other pen there. And again, could just need a bit longer to dry, but to be honest, it's about the same as this one at least, if not maybe a bit better. So I would kind of say that that could very well be waterproof as well. So anyway, now it's a matter of figuring out how to use these supplies. So let me just have a little look here. Stop. Voiceover time. So I decided to stick with the theme summer because for some reason that's where my head was at. So I thought, why not just go with it? And I kind of started thinking, what is summer to me and what kind of symbols mean summer to me? So I thought of a few things and I started kind of doodling them a little bit on a piece of paper, just a separate piece of paper there. And that made me think of doing a piece where I basically have loads of symbols of summer kind of pushed, squished, or whatever you want to call it, together on the paper, almost a little bit in a doodle style, which I've seen a lot over the past while. It seems to have gotten quite popular, and I've been wanting to do something like this for quite a while, so I thought, why not take the chance? So basically come up with a bunch of symbols for summer. So I brainstormed on that a little bit and did a few sketches, and I also asked my husband for ideas because I felt like I ran out at some point. So basically he helped me a bit with that, and then like I said, draw them in kind of cartoony style. And then I thought, why not put eyes on them and give them different facial expressions, which is also, by the way, I thought was a good kind of practice for doing that, like creating different expressions with eyes, because I really want to kind of get better at that. So perfect chance to kind of take that opportunity as well. But then otherwise squish them together on this piece of paper and making them overlap in different ways. And that then, as I was doing that, made me think of why not kind of start to make the different characters, you could say, interact with each other in the form of using the eyes for that. So some would be looking at each other with like a curious look, or maybe angry if they were kind of being hidden behind something else. So I kind of thought that was a fun idea. And I actually had a lot of fun doing this, so creating these cute characters and then adding those different facial expressions and kind of making the whole piece quite cohesive. Now I do like how all the characters ended up, but I do have a few favorites, and currently the one I'm drawing here is a pineapple, which is one of the favorites. I just really like the way that turned out, and I think it's quite cute as well. When I was initially sketching and coming up with different ideas for symbols of summer, he was one of the first ones I actually came up with, a pineapple, because personally I love pineapple. It's one of, if not my favourite fruit. And I kept kind of referring back to him as Mr. Pineapple in my head. So I guess that's kind of the name for him, if he needs to have a name. Now to talk a little bit more about the process of making this itself, I've cut out a lot of kind of clips from this, so I did record the whole process, but I've cut out some of the, for instance, say sketching, and also later on some of the inking, and I've done that because it would just have been very long, and obviously it's just a lot of more of the same things. Now I did that also because I am very slow when I draw, so it would just have been a lot longer, or I would have had to speed it up even more than I already did, which I did quite a lot. So yeah, you only kind of see some of it, but then I'll show some of the ones I didn't show in the sketching when I'm inking. But I also erase a lot, which you might have already noticed, and quite often a lot of the same lines, and redraw it and erase it and redraw it. One, I think, is the perfectionist in me, but two, it's also just because I'm not super confident, because I haven't drawn really much at all for a long time, and I just kind of like to get things just how I want them while I'm sketching before I then start inking, so I kind of know exactly what I'm doing once I get to the inking process, which obviously isn't ideal because I am currently drawing with the pencil on the piece of paper that I'm going to finally ink and colour in on, and obviously doing a lot of erasing and redrawing. It's going to smear the pencil a fair bit on the paper, and it did. Now actually I will just say the pencil I ended up quite liking to use. It felt really nice to use to sketch with. The only issue is it was a bit smudgy, so the paper got a little bit smudged from also erasing so much, but it still worked out in the end. So I definitely will be using this pencil again, maybe just being a little bit mindful of how I use it. Anyway, back to the drawing, because I've now got to a point where I'm actually starting to add in a word. Now I was debating about this from quite early on when I started this drawing here, whether to add in the word summer or what, because I kind of feel like obviously all these symbols of summer, it's obvious enough in itself, but at the same time I kind of like the idea of adding the word just to kind of have the word summer in there and then have all these symbols for summer kind of surrounding it. And it would also help break up the characters a little bit, so basically give the eyes something else in the middle of the page to focus on other than just all these different characters surrounding it. Plus it meant I had to come up with a few less characters and symbols of summer, so that might have been a little bit of a deciding factor in choosing to put it in there as well. Now I did have a little bit of a problem when kind of starting to do the word, because I wasn't sure what style and kind of font type to do it in, and I don't feel like that's something I'm normally particularly good at, so I knew I didn't want it to be just kind of plain basic harsh letters. I wanted it to kind of play along with the theme of the rest of the drawing so far, so kind of the cartoony characters. So in a way obviously blend in with the style, but at the same time I wanted it to be legible so you could obviously actually read what it says. So I ended up with this kind of balloon style letters, which is just what it makes me think of, almost as if it was balloons kind of blown up in the shape of letters. They're just very kind of chunky but very rounded, and trying to make sure there's not too much empty space in the letters. So again, it kind of takes up more space rather than having empty space around it and inside of the letters like they normally would be. And I'm actually quite pleased with how they ended up. So I feel like the style suits the cartoony characters quite well, but I feel like you can still quite easily read what it says. So I feel like I achieved the goal that I had for the word here, and ultimately I'm quite glad that I ended up putting it in there. So we finally reached the inking process now, and I ended up actually using both of the pens, so I guess you could say fine liners, the two black ones, because I was debating which one to use, and then I kind of ended up deciding to use the thick one, which I actually really ended up liking, all the characters and just the whole piece having the thick outlines, but I then ended up using the thinner one for the eyes and the kind of finer detail. So it actually worked out perfectly that it put both sizes in this box, and I definitely will be using both of these liners again because I actually quite enjoyed them. Now back to the drawing. This is actually one of my other favorites that I just am inking in now. So it's a watermelon. Now this is also one I came up with pretty quickly when I started doing the brainstorming for the symbols. And the usual kind of symbol is that it's a slice of watermelon, but I kind of thought it'd be fun to do a whole watermelon but where a slice has been cut out of it. And then I added the face kind of, or the eyes rather, looking a bit uh-oh, I don't like this kind of expression. So I actually quite like how that one ended up as well. So basically a whole watermelon thinking what the heck is going on. And I think I managed to add that expression into the eyes pretty well, so I'm pretty pleased with that. So just jumping back to the pens, now I did mention that I quite enjoyed using them, which I did, and I will be using them again, but I did have a slight problem with one of them, so that's the thin pen. And what I found is sometimes it kind of struggled to get any ink out. It didn't initially when I was just watching it, but when I was drawing here, sometimes it kind of just was quite splotchy and it didn't really want to bring out the ink. Now I do think it's got to do with the fact that I'm drawing over pencil, so I just think it doesn't really like that. And there were multiple times where I had to kind of go over the same line again and again to basically fill it in completely with ink, which obviously is a higher risk of then doing something wrong. But it did work out and I got it to work. It just took a little bit extra effort. So basically that pen doesn't really like going over pencil, but otherwise it was quite a nice pen. So now we've finally reached the top right corner here where there's a few of my other favorite characters. So currently I'm inking the bee, which is probably the favorite of mine. I wanted to do a bee and I wasn't kind of sure how to do it, and I ended up creating this one, and I'm just really happy with how this turned out. I think it is so cute and it would make cute stickers, cute enamel pins, cute anything. And I really want to kind of keep working on this character. It'd be fun to make these type style of bees in multiple different kind of ways and characters, maybe multiples of them. So you'll probably see this bee again because I'm really pleased with how this worked out. I think it's so cute. And also, if you can see right next to the bee, there's an ice cream cone with 3 scoops. And that's another one of my favorite. I really like, it's really the expressions on the scoops that I think just work so well. So the bottom one has got the kind of angry look because the one above it is melting down onto it and it's annoyed by that. That middle one is kind of just crazy looking, doesn't know what's going on. And the top one, which is kind of melted the most, is just having a nice little rest. So, or it could be a dollop of cream or something, I guess, but to me it's 3 scoops, the top one melting the most. But yeah, I just really like how that turned out. I think it's cute as well. Just with those expressions, it really tops it off. And with that, we have reached the colouring process. So that's using the Pit Artist pens. Oh, and then we have a little princess sneaking in, looking what I'm doing. But like I mentioned, I've never used those before, so I didn't quite know what to expect. So obviously I did swatch them to find out how they worked together and just individually. And also try to see if I could mix the colours to get some other colours, because obviously it's quite a limited colour palette we were given. And if you're gonna kind of think of the reality of colours of these characters here, it's quite a lot of different colours. And it turns out though that they don't really mix. They kind of just lay it on top of each other. So because of that, I ended up having to colour certain things in some weird colours. For instance, the bee has got a red face and a blue body. Not my first choice, but obviously I just had to work with what I had. Which is also why when I was colouring this in and realising this, I got a big urge to basically colour it in again, but using my own supplies, so basically be able to use whatever colour I wanted. So I do plan on doing that, and it'll probably also be my next video because I have the urge to do it now. It's quite strong, so I better get on with it while it's there. But otherwise, I am quite pleased with how this came out. Obviously, working with that limited colour palette was challenging, but I still enjoyed it. And I also just really like all these cute summer characters, and it's really got me in the mood for summer, although I don't like the hot temperatures. But anyway, and I hope you enjoyed this one as well. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.